If you would, open up your copy of God's Word to Matthew chapter 9. I know I said last week, Bill Wheeler would be here this week, but y'all, for those that didn't hear, there's been a little scheduling conflict. He said he could come, but if it would work out for us, he really needed to hold off one more week. I knew y'all wanted to hear me one more week. And he, Lord willing, he should be here next week to start his class on marriage. And I know we talked last week. I think it's been about 4 or 5 years since he's been here, but it's good class, and it's good for anyone that's of that age. We may want our teenage class to stay out here as well. Invite your neighbors, your friends, co-workers. You'll be glad you did, and they'll be glad to hear Bill. He's a great speaker, and he's a good teacher. Matthew 9. I know we almost really thought we'd get done with the chapter 9, but that's okay because we're back this week. We have more time. Let's read verses 36 through 38. We just got finished with Christ healing a man that was possessed with a devil, and also he could not speak. He healed him and was accused of casting out demons by the devil. We talked about that a little bit, but here let's read in verse 36 what he says here through 36 to the end of the chapter, and we'll come back and we're going to dissect these verses, talk about them a little bit. Stephen, start us off, 36, please.
When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd.
Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest truly is plentiful, but the laborers are few.
Therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest."
All right. Jesus, apparently there was a lot of people by this time. He's well into his ministry. We've been following him throughout the book of Matthew. I guess it really started out in Matthew 5 with the Sermon on the Mount, or that was near the start. So his fame, he's famous. He got a big crowd following him. And it says here that when he saw the people, that he was moved with compassion. And I guess let's talk a little bit about compassion. We'll come back to that, but why was he moved with compassion?
They didn't have no gas. Just wandering about.
He seen the people. He possibly seen that they were weak. Says they fainted, scattered abroad, as a flock of sheep having no shepherd. What's going to happen to a flock of sheep that doesn't have anyone to tend for them? They're going to get picked off one by one. They're going to die.
The wolves will be getting them.
And I think that's what he's seeing here, and it concerns him. He's moved with compassion. Let's talk about compassion just a little bit. What is compassion? Is that the same thing as what we might call charity or giving of our means? Giving of our means to help others? Could be, I suppose. It could be. But is it a little bit different? Does anybody have anything in their Bible help on compassion? it's a little bit different here, than just giving. And I'll tell you my thoughts on this, and let's just read it. Well, we don't have to read it, somebody might read it for us. Turn, whose turn is it to read? Skylar, 1 Corinthians 13, verse 3. And let's read what Paul says about giving. Do y'all recall that, what he says?
If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing.
Okay. Could everyone hear that? Paul said, if I give everything I have to the poor and have not love, it profiteth me nothing. And so compassion here, it's going to bring about an action. I'm going to read you what I found on when I look it up. Strong's definition about compassion is to have the bowels to yearn, and that's all that's saying is the bowels were thought to be the seat of love and pity. It moves you. Something inside is moved to compassion, and you feel the need to do something, I think is what it's turning out to be. It's a Latin word, and it means with passion and feeling, as Christ would have. We can read about other verses where every time it mentions Jesus being moved with compassion, it's a verb. There's some action that's going to follow. And it's going to follow here in our text tonight, and it does in the text that we read. And it goes throughout the book of, throughout the Gospels, Christ being moved with compassion. We read in Matthew 18 and 27 about there was a servant came to his Lord that owed him 10,000 talents. And the Lord called his debtors up. He said, it's time to pay. But he begged to have mercy. And it says his Lord was moved with compassion and forgave him that debt. We recall that story. In Luke 10, verse 33, it talks about a certain Samaritan. As he journeyed, he saw someone that had been robbed and left for dead. And it said he had compassion on him. You remember what he did? He stopped and helped this man. Put him on his animal, took him to the inn, took care of him. And he also he said, if that's not, I'm gonna go on a journey, finish my journey. If I owe you, he told the innkeeper, take care of him. And if I owe more, when I get back, I'll pay you. So that's compassion. So, which is easier, I guess, to give somebody some of our money and say, help, which that's good. I'm not saying it's not. Or is it easier to get involved and to do something? Depends on if you have extra money or not, I suppose. But is there a difference is all I'm asking. Maybe.
It's hard to get involved in people's lives.
It's a hard thing, isn't it?
It's a hard thing because you open yourself, with any new relationship, you open yourself up to a whole world of things that could go wrong, especially if, in your experience, they have gone wrong with other relationships. So making relationships, maintaining relationships is a very difficult thing.
And it's a costly thing, isn't it?
It is. It costs your time, it costs your money, it costs your resources. Time, mostly.
When that same phrase is used in Matthew 14, when he's about to feed the 5,000, it talks about the great crowd there, and he had compassion on them. They spent their money on the fish, and so they did both. They spent their money and they fed the people. They didn't tell them to go away in the villages or take some extra money, take care of yourself. They took care of them with what they had.
So it may take our time, our effort, our resources, including money. And all these things are good to have, because we may, if we have to help those in need, we are blessed.
Say, be you warm and feel and go your way.
Yeah.
Don't do nothing.
Is that James that talks about that?
I think so.
Says, what have we done if we say that? Are they warm? Are they filled? We haven't done anything for them, really. Good point. All right. But he's seen these people as having a need. He could see they were looking for something. They were faint, and they were like sheep having no shepherd, scattered. They were looking for something. Maybe they didn't even know what they were looking for, but Christ knew. And we're fixing to talk about that in the coming verses. He said to his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous. What's the harvest? What is that?
People who are ready and ripe to be shown the right way and hear the words of life. I think that's what it is.
It's people, yeah, that they need. He sees their need, and it's a spiritual need, isn't it? And he sees that, and he says it's right. The harvest is there, and it's plenteous. So there's many there that need something. And he says the harvest is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Let's talk a little bit about who are the laborers. That's hard to say, laborers. Can just anyone be a laborer? If you're a believer and you follow Christ, and you want to bring others to Christ, that's what he's talking about, isn't it? Go tell someone what Christ has done for you. Go tell someone you have found the Messiah. Come and see. Why are the laborers so few? Why does he say that? And could that be the same thing as it's hard to get involved? To be compassionate? Because it's going to take some of our time, resources, effort. It's going to have to, we're going to have to be compassionate. And to be compassionate is to be like Christ. And to share or help others that are in need. You know, it seems like our world is in need, right? There's trouble everywhere you turn. Strife, division, and the answer is Jesus Christ. You know, it's our relationships in the world. This race thing, it seems like it's gotten worse in the last 10 years, and it was bad when Christ came, but he done away with that too, right? There's no longer Jews and Greeks. There's no longer bond or free. We're all one in Christ. So Christ is the answer. And according to Jesus, what should we do? Verse 38. Pray. Pray ye therefore to the Lord, Lord of the harvest. Who's the Lord of the harvest? in charge, right? God. So he will send forth laborers into his harvest. Let's turn to Luke chapter 6, and we'll read a couple verses there, and then we'll come back to Matthew 10. Let's read verses 12 and 13, Luke 6.
One of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray, and spent the night praying to God.
And when it was day, he called to him his disciples, and of them he chose 12, whom also he named apostles.
Matthew doesn't give that account of Christ praying all night like Luke does, but it's the same occasion. When Christ instructed his disciples to pray, he prayed also to his Father all night before he chose the 12. Is there anybody have any thoughts or comments on those verses? All right, let's read chapter 10, where he. Let's read about 15 verses of Matthew 10, then we'll come back and talk about those a little bit.
And when he had called his 12 disciples to him, he gave them the power over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all kinds of sickness and all kinds of disease.
The names of the 12 apostles are these: first Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother.
Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector, James the son of, I don't know how to say his name, and
Alphaeus.
whose surname was Thaddeus.
Simon the Canaanite and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him.
These 12 Jesus sent out, instructing them, "Go nowhere among the Gentiles and enter no town of the Samaritans.
Instead, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand.
Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. Freely you have received, freely give.
Do not get any gold or silver or copper to take with you in your belts,
or a bag for your journey, or even 2 coats or sandals, or a staff, for the worker is worthy of his support.
And into whatsoever city or town you shall enter, inquire who in it is worthy, and there abide till you go thence.
When you come into a house, salute it.
And if the house be worthy, let your peace come upon it, but if it be not worthy, let your peace return to you.
and whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, when you depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet.
Truly I tell you, it will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town.
All right. Christ chooses the names of 12 apostles. Can anybody quote those by memory? Some of you can. We won't put you on the spot. Some can, I cannot. But he sends them out to this is what we refer to as the limited commission. He's going to the Jews, the lost sheep of the house of Israel, verse 6. Go preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And then, also, heal the sick, cleanse the leper, raise the dead, cast out devils freely. You have received, freely give. Provide neither gold nor silver nor brass in your purses. So there's no money involved here. He said, don't take any. But what they have, they use, and what they possess, they share with others. You know, we want to take the lost into the world. Could we use this right here and say it's right to help people, you know, cure their illnesses, which we do, and provide for their needs if they're hungry? Whatever their need might be, you know, is that okay to do that? I think it is. I think we're to use our resources. If you can't help them with their physical needs, they're probably not going to want to hear the gospel, and I think that's part of it. If they're right there in verse 8, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. You're certainly going to get their attention when you do these things, and you're certainly going to get their gratitude, and maybe gain a soul for Christ. What's it talking about there in verse 11? Whatsoever city or town you shall enter, inquire in it who is worthy, and abide there till you go. And then, I guess I meant on down to verse 14 there. Whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your word, when you depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. And then verse 15 goes with it. That's pretty strong language, isn't it? He says, verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. Why is that? What's he saying?
I think for 14, he's saying don't waste your time on unfertile soil.
He's not going to force himself on anybody. He's just not going to do it.
They won't take it in this.
Just keep moving. Keep moving. Well, look at, why will it be more tolerable in the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city, the ones that reject it? Why is that?
You had the gospel presented to you and you rejected it. You wouldn't even hear it.
This is the Son of God. This is the gospel of the kingdom, isn't it? And it comes with power. Because they're, look at the things they're doing. They're healing the sick, cleansing the lepers, raising the dead, casting out devils. There's some powerful things being done here, and they rejected that. What is there that's left? What could possibly be left? And we know that Sodom and Gomorrah does not. It's going to be worse for them than Sodom and Gomorrah is going to be bad. Does anybody have any other thoughts or comments on those verses?
Sodom and Gomorrah, wouldn't they're getting salt. What's wrong with it?
Yeah, that's where, that's where Abraham, not Abraham, Abraham's nephew Lot and his family resided. Is that right? Sodom and Gomorrah? And, God sent angels to that town to, destroy it.
Yeah, so he's saying they're worse off than they were.
Yeah, and he destroyed it with fire and brimstone. But he allowed Lot and his wife time to get out.
Yeah.
It's time to leave. And then his wife, he said, don't look back. When you leave, don't look back. She looked
Yeah,
back
she's the one that,
and turned into a pillar of salt.
yeah.
So,
I know that had something.
got just a few minutes here. Let's read verse 16. I think we've got time to read all of those. Let's read. Yeah, go ahead.
Therefore be as snakes and as innocent as doves.
But beware of men, for they will deliver you to councils and scourge you in their synagogues.
Wanna keep reading?
Yeah, let's read one more.
Okay. You will be brought before governors and kings for my sake, as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles.
I'll have to read a couple more. Keep going.
When they deliver you over, do not be anxious how you are to speak or what you are to say. For what you are to say will be given to you in that hour.
For it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you.
All right, let's talk about them verses. We got just a few minutes. Gig, you read verse 16. Send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. So that sounds kind of scary. And he says, be therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Go ahead and explain that for me. What's he talking about there? They're going out and they're gonna be persecuted, without a doubt. That's what the wolves are. They're gonna persecute them. He wants them to be innocent. Send you forth as sheep. But I want you to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves.
My cross-reference goes back to the serpent in Genesis. So that, that crafty serpent is how it's written in Genesis, right? So we don't think about comparing ourselves as Christians to that serpent in the garden, but maybe we need to be thinking about what that serpent is going to do in those towns and be prepared to give an answer, like Jesus was whenever he was tempted in the desert.
It's kind of hard to explain, isn't it? It's just hard to,
Hey, Tony?
yes,
He's saying don't be naive.
don't be naive.
He said because when they're coming after you, they're just like the examples when they came after Jesus, they would ask him questions to try to trip him up, but he never fell into the trap because he knew. They would ask him questions about whose husband is this in the afterlife, and they didn't even believe in the resurrection. And he would ask them questions back because he wasn't naive. He knew what they were trying to do to him. He said, don't fall into these traps that they're going to set before you. I think, wasn't it a class that we had with Tim back here, what's his name?
Tim
Fishers of
Wilkes.
Men class.
Tim Wilkes.
When we engage people about the gospel, they will engage us sometimes to try to get a negative reaction from us. And Tim will say, don't fall into that trap. Maybe even ask them a question back, but you don't don't feel compelled to answer every question or rectify every matter that they bring up, because they're not bringing it up because they really want to learn. They're bringing it up to try to punch you in the face spiritually.
those questions are designed to pull you in.
That's
And
right.
And that they don't deserve an answer.
Yeah,
And I think I remember what you're talking about.
And draw you into an argument. And Tim's advice was don't go there with that. Be wise about that. And maybe even be like Christ, even ask a question back.
But when you get drawn into it, you can't be as harmless as doves, because you've caused some conflict in.
That's right.
Wise
If
as-
I remember that teaching of Tim's correctly, that's kind of what he was trying to tell us is, hey, don't be naive about the point people are trying to make with you in the gospel, because not all of them have good intentions or innocent intentions.
Verse 22, we'll end right there. Says, you will be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. So you keep reading in this book, and he'll say that the servant is not above his master. So they hated me, they're going to hate you. Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Don't cause grief. Like you said, and that's hard to do, isn't it? Not to be drawn into an argument. We like to win an argument. If we're honest, we like to win an argument. But that's not what it's about. It's about teaching Christ. I think we'll stop right there. Thank you very much for your attention and your comments tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Isn't it good to be here? We look around us and see that there are several that are not, and a lot of it's due to health issues, and we just need to keep those in prayer, and we have a lot of people dealing with health struggles right now. I have got a gospel minutes that dates back to July the 30th of this year, and it had a topic there of discussion: what causes churches to die? I'd just like to share it with you briefly. Jesus instructed the Apostle John to write to the church of Sardis in the first century. I know thy works, that thou hast a name, that thou livest, and thou art dead. That's Revelation 3:1. Very little is revealed to us about the church in Sardis, but we don't know what their budget was, what their attendance was to their various worship assemblies, and we know nothing of their building, if they even had one. Nothing is said about who their preacher was, how many elders they had, and if they had any debts. All those good things that we use to measure a church today were not revealed. They had a good reputation. Thou hast a name that thou livest. But Jesus told them, thou art dead. They evidently thought they were doing fine, but the Lord knew better. They had died without even realizing it. I wonder how many churches of Christ there are today like the church in Sardis. Maybe a church has great attendance, lots of programs of work, a big budget and activity going on daily. All of this is good, and we would say that church is really alive. But is it possible the Lord would pronounce that church dead just as Sardis was? Christ looks at the spiritual strength of a church, not just the numbers. And outward actions do not always reflect spiritual conditions. A church can have a good reputation like Sardis and still be dead. And there are many things that can cause a church to die. But I think, as was discussed in class tonight, the word compassion was mentioned. And I think that's where the key is. If he wants us to do the things that we do from our heart, and if we are compassionate, then that will lead us to do the work that God would have us do. And we wouldn't be just going through the motions, so to speak. And I think we can, I know I can look back in my life and at a time when I think I was just going through the motions. And if we operate that way, death is sure to come. And, you know, I get to thinking about a chain and how strong a chain or how weak a chain can be if there's just one link that is compromised. And I think about that in relation to the church. Just one member is all it takes to do something that is unspeakable, perhaps, or to just not show Christ-like character in the way that he deals with people, or And just one incident, and word will get around in the community. Well, doesn't he go to church at Liberty? You know, and they'll judge the whole bunch by just one. So, you know, you get a weak link in a chain, and the chain is dangerous to use. One weak member can be a danger to the body. Let's just be all that we can be. Let's do what we do from our heart because we're passionate about it. We have real concern. And we want to be pleasing to God. Those of us that are Christians, I want to share the 23rd Psalm with you. And those that haven't accepted Christ and been obedient, this is what you're missing out on. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I don't know about you, but as I read those words, that's just who God is. That's just how powerful he is. He will provide our every need in every situation. There's nothing he can't do. All we got to do is just trust in him. If you are in need of prayer in any way, now would be the time to come and let that be known. And if you desire to become a Christian, a child of God, well, you can come forward and let that be known at this time.